So today I'm going to be talking about one of my new favorite topics, which is sacred economics. But I'm going to be talking about it in like a totally different way. And that's because one, it like affects me personally, and it's something that I felt challenged with for quite some time. And two, the people in my life that I'm closely connected with are actually navigating similar challenges. So I imagine, it's not just us. It's a reflection of the macrocosm, right? Like that, the microcosm being a reflection of the macrocosm and vice versa. So what I want to get into is this concept of sacred economics and the economics of generosity and gratitude, which is like a gift economy sort of thing, but slightly different because we're not looking at it through the I gift you something and then I get something back, but rather in a generosity, a true generosity, versus making money, the fiat side of things. And I've had so many conversations about this in the last week alone that it's really shown me both my blind spots and offered some answers to some questions that I've been holding for quite some time. And also just perhaps a different way, like a way to actually lean into this and look at it through a slightly different lens or from a different perspective even. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story first about my own experience with making money. And I'm going to preface this by saying one of my core beliefs, or at least something I've come to understand, is that the masculine and the feminine tend to approach fiat currency, so money that is based around like a dollar value or a set value number, very, very differently. And I've been having these conversations with my partner Matt, and we're willing to get into it together. And it's really revealing to me just how different we are. Because for him, he's just like, yes, I need to make money, so therefore I go make money. And I'm like, okay, well, why do you need to make money? And there is no clear answer for him. He just understands that is his direction. It's like this linear path of like, yep, I need it, so therefore I get it, and I can get it, so therefore I will. And I get that there's like other things tied up in there too, and I'm simplifying it. But for me, it goes much deeper because, and this is kind of going into the feminine aspect of things. I actually believe more like traditionally, that's just not what the role of the feminine has been in a traditional sense. And I suppose when I'm saying in a traditional sense, I mean in the traditional sense of woman. And not even talking about the traditional role of the housewife. I'm talking about even like going way back to like the hunter-gatherer times and just the fact that women have babies. Like it's biologically determined that there's this component of caregiving and a lot of energy, particularly during certain times of our lives, is focused in on that. And so no wonder I felt such a discordance with the way that, I felt like I was being, I don't want to say pushed into it because I always have sovereignty and autonomy to make choices, but that it almost felt like an obligation, or that I didn't really have a lot of choice, that I needed to go make money and figure that out and. And it really caused me to lean into that space of the masculine. Not to mention the fact that I went through a divorce when my kids were quite young, 5 and 8, and I needed to take care of things in a different way than I had been. Up until that point, I had kids quite young. I was 21 when I got pregnant with my son, Owen, and had him at 22. And when I was 22, I started what's now Wellness Within. I started it as a one-room massage center, grew it to a two-room, moved to a bigger space, grew it until now it's like this big multidisciplinary wellness center that I'm no longer a part of. And I've been thinking that needs to be a story for a different day, because I've noticed that the stories within me, I don't always share for fear of, hurting people or maybe offering a biased perspective. Like, that's never my intention, and I don't want to do that. But I've noticed that story is important for me. So I'll need to tend to that and address that. So if you listen to these podcasts and you find that, interesting and you might want to learn more, please let me know, and then I will consider wrapping that in or weaving that in. So getting back to that. So I created that business, and I created this heart matrix of love, like, within this business. And, almost, I don't want to say a surrogate child, but it was another baby. Like, it was another component of creative birth that I felt called to bring into the world and to nurture and to sustain. But the thing that I struggled with was to turn that into a money-making thing. And I think that's for very good reason, because what it asked of me, especially during that time of my life, was to turn my heart offering into a transactional thing. And that didn't feel good. It caused a lot of challenge because I wasn't clear on that. I wasn't clear on the fact that, hey, I'm the heart of the business. If this business is going to make money, somebody else needs to help with that part of it. And in reflection, I do think that, my husband at the time could have done that, but we were immature and we didn't have the language or the experience or any of that stuff. Yeah. Story for a different day. And so when I'm reflecting back on that, it was a feminine approach, and I was confusing this sacred economics, this gifting, this generous spirit, this creation of the heart with this tactical, linear, logistical way of exchanging money for value. And they just don't fucking match. They're not the same thing. It's a totally different energy. And yes, of course, everything at the essence, at the heart, is the same energy, but it's not the same when we're looking at applying different values to something. It's we can't just transfer it over because we want to. It just doesn't fit. So of course I can be generous in terms of a transactional relationship. If I'm giving something and I'm receiving a value or a monetary component that is agreed upon, of course I can still be generous in spirit. I can still be generous in honesty and clarity and all of the different things that make one of those transactions a good experience. Of course I can do that. But it's not the same thing as being generous without expecting anything in return. And that's the key, because what my heart wanted was to gift this, wanted to gift the business, wanted to gift all of those components. So in retrospect, it wasn't a business because it was a heart offering. And I confused that for a really long time. So guess what happened? I made $0 for 10 years of owning that business. And now I can imagine from the outside, other people looking in, that they likely saw, what might have looked like a successful business. And of course, because it was moving, I was paying people, I was making it work so that we could offer this, these heart offerings. We were expanding in different ways. But it was always like deep down in my core, in my heart, it was always with the sincere intention of bringing this light, this gift into the world. And so let's just touch on that sacred economics component of things. Because, so Charles Eisenstein, I watched this really beautiful lecture from him. And really at the heart of all of this is this understanding, and it makes me emotional just to think of this and like to feel into it. When we gift generously, when we feel called to give something of the heart, it's not with the idea that we give and then it will come back to us in some way. So hear that. It's not with the idea that something will come back to us. It's with the understanding that I am you, right? It's a love offering. It's like, it's not even so that I will experience the joy of that. It's this deep, abiding understanding that, like, at our essence, we are all the same and all deserving and all part of this like cosmic tapestry of limitless love. And so imagine that for a moment. If you start to apply the transactional aspect or value of trading currency, what's going to happen? It's going to stem the flow of that love. And again, this is not to undermine that we can still be generous in transactional relationships, in transactional choices. It's just that when we claim or choose to provide a heart offering, an offering of generosity, and it's confused with transaction, it's like whether it's hidden, maybe it's something we're not even fully conscious of, or it's like, maybe it's not even hidden, but it's simply unclear, or it's just kind of woven in a way that, we have this understanding, even if it's expressed, that I will give of my heart, I expect something in return. It's just not going to fucking work. And it's going to undermine the love that was moving through you as you were being that clear channel of divine love, as you were like being that conduit for what is truly possible in the world. So all that to say, when we remove that, when we remove the transactional aspect of a heart offering, what we're left with is this is exactly what we're all looking for. And that's what I truly believe. And man, like one topic kind of leads to the other. So as I was saying that, I was feeling, why is that? Like, why is it that we all crave this? Why is it that we all know that we have these heart offerings and we simply want to be in the expression of love? And I truly believe it's because at the moment of birth, the original fear and the original longing are born in us. And so the original longing is the reunification with Source, right? We're born into this body, into this world, and I don't want to say we're torn away from, because we're not, but it's like, it's almost like we've had to become a form in order to experience this reality, whatever this dimension is. And so of course it brings this longing into us for a reunification of that, for the experience and expression of love, which is like, that's the best definition of love I can imagine. And it also, within us is born this original fear, which is that we will not be loved, that we will not ever experience that reunification. So imagine as a child, as you're like growing up, and then your parents and the people who are tasked with caring for you, like of course there's going to be fears in there, because like all we crave, all we desire is that experience of love and belonging. So okay, so that's where that comes from, in my belief and in my experience. I don't just come up with these beliefs willy-nilly. Like, I spend a lot of time, and maybe not even time, but depth of reflection and experience to really feel into that. And so because love is our nature and it's our deepest desire, of course we're going to want to create in that way. And in this world right now as it is, and of course we can imagine something different if we so choose to, and we can engage in a different way, but some of the ways that I want to engage involve money, involve fiat currency, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. And I think this is kind of like some of the dark side of the spiritual businesses, is that there's like this pretend that money doesn't matter. And if you don't need to worry about money, like if you're supported in a different way and you don't need it, great, be honest about that. But if you're in it for money, or if you're wanting a transactional choice or opportunity, be fucking clear about that too. Like, be direct and say, this is what I'm offering, this is the price of it, rather than gifting it with an expectation, or rather than being like, okay, this is of my heart. Well, yeah, and it's also a transaction. So can it be fully of your heart? Can you remove the transactional aspect of it? No, of course not. So this is like a deeper topic than I wonder if I can even get into in this one. I think it will be like an unfolding, a revealing as things are revealed to me and in my life, and in the ways that I'm choosing to start to apply this in my own experience. Because, so as I mentioned, this is something I've been challenged with in the past, because I've had experiences where I've made good money with my business, with my work. And you know what? It inevitably gets to a place where I don't feel good about it. And that's because I've been confusing these two things. What started as this spark of a sincere desire to give kind of got twisted and almost like turned on its head in such a way that I was left feeling empty, right? That search for that, not even a search for that expression of love. It's like the well went empty because I kept engaging in this way that was transactional. It didn't allow for flow. It was too structured. It was like, okay, I'm going to give you this, and this is what I promise for the next 6 months, for the next year. I'm going to show up every week. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. It's not going to fit. Like, the expression of heart and creative spirit, that sincere desire for bringing something forward and sharing it with open heart, cannot be contained in a box or a structure or a format or a framework or an ABC formula. It's like, it's too big and vast for that. It's too multidimensional for that. It requires a flow. It requires us to be changed by it. That feels really important. It requires us to be changed by it. So when something is being created through us, that perhaps we haven't created before or haven't seen or experienced, the process of creation is going to change us. So we're not the same as when we began. And therefore, we cannot stay in this structured box. And I think that this is one of the greatest gifts of the feminine, is to be in this flow of creation. And like, my goodness, if I could just have a sponsor, somebody who would pay my bills, and like I would just be in that space of heart creation all of the time. And it's interesting. I can almost feel the magic and expansiveness of that if more women were supported in that way, to be in that space of heart offering. And yeah, that's like a total side tangent, but I'm speaking that out to the universe. And let me also share that, my partner, Matt, is a wonderful support in terms of so many things, financially and otherwise. I also receive child support from my kid's dad, and I feel so deeply grateful for that. Like there's lots that I'm given to help to support me in offering a lot of these things without the need for the transaction. And let's go to the part where I am choosing to make money. And I'm starting to call them buckets. That's a weird way to show you buckets. Okay, so anyways, a bucket here and a bucket here. Oh my goodness. If this wasn't a video, I imagine you might be listening on audio, but if this wasn't a video, I could have got away with that one. So I'm imagining these as buckets now, where my heart offerings are over here, and I'm trying not to cross them too much with the transactional aspect of things, because it starts to get a bit confusing. It also is challenging in terms of the transactional or the fiat currency aspect of things, to be really clear and direct and honest about that when there's heart offerings woven in. So I'm navigating that and kind of like figuring that out as I go, because some of my offerings that were part of my business in the past, I am going to transition into something that has nothing to do with transaction or leading to transaction. And I already do that in many ways, offering meditations and breathworks, and I offer business coaching for particularly friends who I feel would really benefit from it. And it's because I have this medicine within me that can see really far in terms of vision, but not just vision in okay, A to B. It's like I can see this expansive, maybe not even just expansive, but liberated aspect of what it is that is seeking to be created in, through, and as a person. Sometimes that's a bit challenging myself, because seeing that in myself is a little bit harder with then applying the ABC steps, because I'm so in the vision so much of the time. And so those are heart offerings. And there are other places that I'm really leaning into and choosing to be specifically about making money. And I'm not going to apologize for that. It's wild to me that we feel that we do, because even as I said that, there's this part of me that still shrinks a little bit and doesn't want to claim that this is about making money. And it's almost like we don't want to be seen as greedy or taking. And to me, those places come from a discordance. They come from something being hidden. It's like the promise of community. Had this whole conversation about multi-level marketing recently, and that came up in a big way. It's like they sell community, They sell people. They sell these aspects of belonging. And then it's hidden. It's hidden in the guise of community. And even personal development, personal growth stuff can do that. And I've bought and sold it, coaching programs, and it's not something I'm willing to do any longer. And I want to shine a light on that so that we don't mistakenly choose these places in search of belonging. That doesn't mean we can't choose to do these things. It's just that's not where belonging lives. And of course, belonging can come out of those places. We can develop relationships. And I learned something recently that really touched me, and that's just a deeper understanding of community as being generosity and shared stories. Like that's the simplest understanding of what community is. And so it's those heart offerings, right? That's how community is built. And it's love. It's the recognition that I am you. And so these places where I'm being direct and honest about making money in exchange for a service or a good, and they need to exist. And the conversations that have been coming up are really around like, okay, so I say that I want this. Well, why? What do I want? How much money do I want? How often do I want it? What am I going to use it for? And the more clear that I become on that, and I'm not shadowing these aspects of searching for belonging or looking for meaning in this experience of making money beyond, what can I use this money for? It becomes so much more simple. And it really reveals what was needed all along for me in terms of the clarity and and that sense of alignment with my values that I was searching for. Because of course it's going to feel out of alignment when I'm trying to fit my heart offerings into these spaces, or when I'm disguising my choice to make money within them, or hiding them, or like looking for that belonging in spaces of transaction. Like, of course it's going to inevitably collapse because it's not fucking honest. It's not direct. It's not clear. And so this revealing, this unveiling and unfolding that's been happening for me and for many of the people I've been connecting with feels really beautiful and feels clear and honest. And this phrase keeps like going over and over again in my mind, that the truth will set you free, but at first it will piss you off. And yeah, I can feel that one in a big way. And the freedom aspect of it, like that is a core value of mine. And at first it pissed me off to see all of the ways that I was completely out of alignment, that I was bullshitting my way through, that I was like hiding little parts of myself to try to fit into this idea of what I thought people wanted to see of me, or what I thought a spiritual person was, or a good person. Like, take out the spiritual and just a good person. And it's just not true. It's not true. So I've really had to reevaluate that within myself And I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years unraveling the roles that I had created to protect. It's almost like I had this vault of secrets, and I had developed these guards, and I was the guards, and I was the roles that were protecting this vault of secrets because I didn't want anybody to see them. Like, not even intentionally, just I just done it. And out of coping, out of protection, out of fear, and taking on the role of mother, taking on the role of teacher, taking on the role of leader, taking on the role of the good girl. Like, all of this bullshit, and like all of these little roles are like lined up in front of my vault of secrets. And yeah, it's just, there's nothing to protect. The truth doesn't need protection. The truth will set you free. And it was really fucking hard to start to unravel the roles. And I didn't realize how deep they ran, because for like at least a year of me being like, okay, I'm not teaching anymore, and like sharing that publicly, like teaching live, I was still getting asked to teach and to share. And it just, every time that came up for quite some time, I had to, like, I felt this like, ugh, like this not good feeling inside that, like, oh my God, I have to, I'm still in this role, aren't I? I'm still in there. And not just because that's how other people saw me, but because there was the reaction. There was like that internal sense of like, of discomfort. Whereas if it didn't hold any emotional charge or energetic charge, if somebody asked, I'd just be like, nope, doesn't fit. You know, I wouldn't feel bad about saying no. I wouldn't, like, nothing. And these days I don't feel bad about saying no to that. I'm sure there's other roles and masks that I'm taking off, and I'll continue to take off. And maybe I'll put on another one and I'll have to take that one off. Like, you know, I'm human. We're figuring our way through these things. And yeah, that all of those like protections of my vault of secrets, like they've started to stand down. And like, it felt like a death of the ego. Like, each of these roles was a component of my ego that was designed to keep me safe. Like, the ego isn't bad. The ego is this part of us that we create in order to keep ourselves protected. Remember that original fear that I shared, that fear that we will not be loved, that we will not be accepted. And so it runs deep. It's like, it's inherent in being human. Now, that I don't think that means that we have to hold on to it. I just think that it's this component that we navigate in this human form. Yeah. Okay, so that topic went like all over the place. Is that where you thought I'd be going with it? I hope that it offered at least some insight in terms of the difference between, you know, this giving, this economics of giving, like sacred economics. And if you haven't heard me talk about economics in the truest form of it, like, it meant of the home. So it really was a very feminine component, like an aspect of life. Is like, economics was of the home. It was of caregiving. It was this giving aspect of like what made everything go around. And so like this sacred economics compared to this fiat transactional aspect of life. I don't even want to call it economics, because I think that undervalues or undermines the essence and the origin of it. So yeah, I just hope that offers something, but just something. And I'm always open to reflections and yeah, just how this touched you, or if there's any other topics that like are really alive in your space, because I'm just loving this. Like, this is one of my light ups that is a heart offering. I am not looking to have this monetized in any way. This is simply being in the experience and expression of that creative impulse moving through me. And it feels so good for it to be that. It feels so good for it to be that. And if I'm ever offered and choose for it to be monetized, I will be so direct and honest about that, and I will have to sit with it long and hard to determine if that's even something that I want. Because right now, in this moment, in this current expression of this creation, this is simply a matrix of love. I am doing this because I love.